You've been lied to about what makes a man respected, desired, followed, and remembered. The truth? It's not how much you say. It's what you choose never to say. High-value men, real men, know this one truth. What you hide is just as powerful as what you show. You've been exposing too much to the wrong people, and it's costing you your peace, your power, your purpose. So I ask you, why are you letting her read your whole book when she hasn't earned the first page? Comment, I control my access, if you're done giving free front row seats to people who don't belong in your theater. There's a war inside men today. You've been taught to open up, to share, to be vulnerable, as if that will somehow earn you love, respect, and peace. But let me ask you something. Has it worked? Have you become more powerful by exposing your pain to someone who might not even understand it? Have you been respected more, or have you been quietly judged, slowly tested, and silently resented for being too open? High-value men live by different rules. They don't beg to be seen. They train themselves to be unshakable, unfazed, unreadable, because they understand something the modern world forgot. Mystery is power. Control is freedom. Discretion is strength. That's why I created the Stoic Relationship Blueprint, not a theory, but a weapon, a practical, step-by-step guide written for men like you. It teaches how to carry strength, build deep respect, and navigate modern relationships without losing your edge. The e-book is finally available, but not for long. This is sacred knowledge, and to preserve its impact, it won't stay public for long. Today, we're revealing the 8 things high-value men always keep hidden from women. Number 1. They never show their insecurities. A man's insecurities are real, but showing them, wearing them, projecting them onto the people around you, especially her, that is a choice, and it is a choice that costs you. Deep down you already know this. You've felt it. Every time you let your voice shake, every time you asked for reassurance, every time you sought approval in her eyes, you saw something shift. You saw her distance herself by millimeters at first, then feet. You saw her trust in your strength fade quietly, slowly, like a flame that runs out of air. And yet they tell you it's okay to bleed in front of her, that love means exposing your wounds. But the truth, the kind no one dares to tell you, is that the more you confess your fears to her, the more you plant doubt in her heart. Not because she is cruel, but because she is wired to follow strength. And when you make her your therapist instead of your witness, when you ask her to carry what you haven't yet conquered, she sees a version of you that needs fixing instead of following. She begins to test, to question, to shift into a role you never intended for her. She's not here to parent your doubts. You are. You are your own father now. And if you've never been taught what that looks like, start now. Build the body that mirrors discipline, not despair. Set goals not because someone else will clap, but because your future self demands it. Get up early, even when you don't want to. Speak less, do more, because the man who can sit with his fears and not flinch, who can feel that darkness inside him without dumping it into another person's hands, that man becomes rare, and rare becomes respected. You don't need to tell her about the times you felt unwanted, unseen, or unworthy. She doesn't need to know the boy you used to be. She only needs to witness the man you've become. And if you're still becoming him, make that your obsession. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to gift you confidence. You build it brick by brick in private, in pain, in silence. Not by sharing your anxieties, but by proving them wrong. When your knees are shaking and your stomach tightens, when you doubt if you're good enough, show up anyway. Speak with calm. Walk with intention. Hold your frame. Because here's the most painful truth. The world, and especially the woman watching you, respects what you withhold, not what you release. They feel safe when you are stable, and stability is not the absence of fear, it's the mastery of response. So bury your insecurities under layers of action. Write them out at night, scream them into a journal, sweat them out in iron and gravel and motion. But when you speak, speak as the man who's already solved the puzzle. When you stand in front of her, let your energy say, "You're standing beside a builder, not a beggar." This doesn't mean you fake who you are. It means you take responsibility for who you're becoming. Because the moment you look her in the eyes and ask her to fill the cracks you haven't sealed yourself, you're no longer the man she believed in. You've become a burden. High-value men never beg for emotional band-aids. They engineer the cure. And if that means swallowing the pain quietly, if that means taking a walk instead of breaking down, if that means looking her in the eye and saying nothing, so be it. You're not made to be pitied. You're made to be followed. So if your soul is whispering, "You're not enough," don't speak it. Prove it wrong. Number 2. They keep their trauma private. Some scars are meant to be seen, others are meant to be sacred. The problem begins when we start thinking every painful memory deserves an audience, when we confuse healing with overexposure. But not every woman you meet is equipped or willing to carry the weight of your past. And high-value men know this. They know that trauma, while real and sometimes violent in the way it shaped them, is not meant to be poured into every relationship like a flood-seeking rescue. You may have been abandoned, you may have been betrayed, humiliated, neglected, broken in ways only you understand. But if you haven't yet transformed that trauma into strength, if you haven't processed it into purpose, then handing it to her is not healing. It's transfer of burden, and she didn't sign up for that. She was drawn to your confidence, your poise, the way you walked into the room as if you'd already fought battles and won. She wasn't drawn to the version of you still bleeding from yesterday's wounds. So when you sit her down and unload your life story, every dark chapter, every painful betrayal, she might nod, she might hold your hand. But internally, she's recalibrating. She's wondering if she just became your anchor, if the man she was leaning on now needs her to be the stronger one. And over time, that subtle power shift turns desire into duty. You might still sleep in the same bed, but the polarity has shifted. You are no longer the man she believed could weather any storm. You've become the man who still hasn't left the last one. This is not to shame you. This is to awaken you. Your trauma is real, but your responsibility to grow from it is more real. So what do? You begin the quiet war. You get help if you need it, but not from her. You write until your fingers hurt. You train your body until it reflects the discipline your mind craves. You make your pain your teacher, not your identity. And when the time comes, when she sees the calm in your eyes, the precision in your actions, the depth behind your silence, she'll know you've lived through things. She'll know you've bled, but she'll also know you've rebuilt. That's what creates respect. That's what creates long-term attraction. Not the confessions, but the composure. Not the details of your past, but the results you've pulled from its ashes. So guard your trauma, not with shame, but with sovereignty. Share it only when it's been shaped into something beautiful, something useful, something solid. Until then, carry it like a sword inside your coat. Not for display, but for discipline. Because your pain is either your weapon or your weakness, and only you get to choose which. Number 3. They don't reveal all their ambitions. There's a reason the most dangerous men say the least about what they're building, because they understand that the more you expose your dreams to people who haven't earned access to them, the more you invite erosion, distraction, delay. You think it's just talking. You think sharing your vision makes you bold. But what you're really doing is releasing power that hasn't matured yet. You speak about the company you want to start, the body you're going to build, the future you're planning to create. And every time you speak it out loud, especially to someone who isn't in the arena with you, a piece of that drive leaks out. Because now it's heard, now it's commented on, now it's judged, analyzed, reshaped. High-value men understand something you were never taught. Ambition is sacred, and sacred things don't belong in casual conversations. When you tell a woman everything you plan to become, you open the door for her perception to shape your progress. She'll look at your ambition not through the lens of potential, but through her need for certainty, and her questions will begin. Are you sure that will work? Do you have a backup? What if it fails? And slowly, the fire inside you that once roared with conviction starts negotiating with her comfort. She wants safety, you want legacy, and now you're watering down the very thing that makes you rare. If you're still in the process of becoming, don't ask her to validate a vision she wasn't born to understand. She sees you now, not the man you will become. It's not her fault. It's yours for asking someone who lives in the present to believe in a future only you can see. And the cruel twist: if you fail after telling her, you lose her respect. If you succeed, you may still lose her interest. Because the mystery is gone, the hunt is over, the story's already been spoiled. So what's the path? Build quietly. Let your daily actions speak in code. Let your work ethic be felt before it's explained. The man who shares less becomes more magnetic, not because he's playing games, but because he understands that anticipation is power. Think of every powerful man in history, not the loud ones, the real ones. You didn't hear them brag. You saw the results. They showed up one day, seemingly out of nowhere, with empires at their back and no apology in their step. Be that man. Build your ambition like a castle, brick by brick, deep in the mountains where no one sees until it's ready. And when it's ready, when you've earned your scars and mastered your craft, she won't need you to explain. She'll feel it. She'll feel the strength in your walk, the confidence in your decisions, the calm in your execution. She won't need details. She'll trust the man who didn't need her approval to start. That's the man she'll follow. That's the man she'll admire. So the next time you feel the urge to explain your plan, hold it. Channel it into action. Let it grow in darkness away from opinion. And when it's time, introduce your ambition not with words, but with presence. Number 4. They mask emotional vulnerability. A man can feel deeply and still remain unshaken, and that is the difference between maturity and emotional exhibition. You were told that to be close, to be loved, to be chosen, you had to open up everything inside you, expose your fears, cry on her lap, show her that you're just like her. But what no one told you was that every time you did that, a little part of her started seeing you not as her leader, but as her equal in fear. And that's where things begin to change. At first, she admires your honesty. She says she feels close. But slowly she starts to notice that she's the one holding the emotional space. She's the one staying strong when you fall apart. And while she may never say it out loud, she starts feeling what her biology has always whispered to her. This man cannot be leaned on. High-value men don't suppress emotions. They refine them. They feel pain, but they don't make it everyone's problem. They grieve, but they do it on their feet. They struggle, but you won't hear about it until they've already turned it into wisdom. Vulnerability is not weakness, but frequent emotional dumping is. You need to understand that the woman you admire most is attracted to strength. She doesn't have to question. That doesn't mean you fake strength. It means you build it until it's real. So when your emotions swell, when you're overwhelmed, angry, lost, you take a breath. You go for a long walk with your thoughts. You write down your chaos. You speak to God. You hit the iron. You fight the war inside yourself so you don't spill it all over people who weren't built to carry it. And if you must speak, you do it after the battle, when your wounds are already clothed, not bleeding. Tell her what you learned. not what you're lost in. She doesn't need to see every moment of collapse. She needs to feel the stability of your presence, the depth of your peace. That's what she'll trust. That's what she'll desire. Because what most men don't realize is this: the emotional journey you take in private becomes the emotional weight you carry in public. And women, they feel that weight, whether you speak it or not. If it's heavy, they step back. If it's stable, they step closer. So guard your emotions like a sacred fire. Feed them the right fuel. Don't hand them to someone else to manage, because your emotional world, when disciplined, becomes your greatest strength. It gives you the power to stay calm when chaos calls, to love without losing yourself, to lead without needing validation. That's the man she follows. That's the man you were born to be. Not unfeeling, but unfazed. Not emotionless, but emotionally earned. You want to be unforgettable? Then stop over-explaining your feelings and start mastering them. Speak less about how you feel and more about who you're becoming through those feelings. And if you ever feel weak, remember this: your emotions are not a problem. They're a signal, but how you respond, that is the test. And the man who passes it doesn't cry to be seen. He builds until he can't be ignored. Number 5. They never expose financial weakness. Money doesn't just buy things. It buys a man's ability to stand without trembling, to make decisions without compromise, to walk into a room and know that he doesn't owe anyone an apology for where he is or who he's becoming. And when that power is missing, a man feels it long before anyone else sees it, because it eats at him, quietly, relentlessly, making him question every word, every move, every moment he dares to believe he's enough. And the worst thing he can do, the one decision that will drain what little strength he has left, is to look a woman in the eyes and admit he's financially broken, because what he calls vulnerability, she hears as instability. And while she may nod, may smile, may say it's okay, her spirit begins to shift, and you'll feel it, not all at once, but slowly, in how she speaks to you, how she looks at you, how she touches you, because women are biologically drawn to security, not charity. And when you place your struggle on her lap, you turn her from your partner to your patron, and that changes everything, not because she's shallow, but because she's human, and you, as a man, were never meant to beg for grace. You were born to build ground where none exists. And yes, maybe you're in a season of lack. Maybe you're digging yourself out of a hole no one knows you're in. Maybe the weight is unbearable, but the solution isn't confession. It's construction. It's rebuilding in the quiet hours. It's using your mornings, your nights, your exhaustion as the raw material for a new foundation. And you don't need to lie. You just need to move in silence. Carry yourself with the energy of a man on a mission, not a man in mourning. Say little, dress well, speak clearly. And when she asks how things are going, smile and say, progress. Because progress is all you need to earn respect. Not perfection, not wealth, just motion. And motion you can control. Even when your bank balance says otherwise, even when your pockets are gasping for breath, you still have control over how you speak, how you walk, how you plan, how you carry your temporary situation like a future king preparing his crown. And if she stays while you're building, good. But if she doesn't, bless her, release her, and keep building anyway, because your financial power isn't about showing off. It's about not being dependent, not being reactive, not being swayed by fear or need. It's about becoming a fortress, not just for you, but for the legacy you'll leave behind. And if you're broke today, don't announce it. Outwork it. And when you do finally rise, rise with receipts, rise with proof, rise with results, not apologies. Number 6. They don't reveal all sexual history. There's a reason certain things from your past deserve a grave, not a conversation. Because the more you talk about what you've done, who you've been with, the more you reduce your presence to memories that don't serve your future, and while the world screams, be honest, be open, be transparent, what they forget to tell you is that transparency without timing is self-sabotage, because she may say she wants to know your history, but what she really wants is to know that your present is disciplined and your future is focused. She wants to feel special, not recycled. And when you begin naming names, confessing conquests, explaining mistakes, you don't sound honest. You sound careless. And worse, you invite comparison, not connection, because now she's imagining them, wondering if you loved them more, if you touched them the same, if the passion she thought was hers was once shared by someone who meant less, and that image, once planted, is hard to unsee. It lingers in her thoughts, it shapes how she responds to you, and even if she forgives the past, she doesn't forget the story. So high-value men protect their history not because they're ashamed of it, but because they understand its weight. They know that mystery keeps desire alive, that leaving something unsaid preserves power. And when she asks, not out of respect, but out of curiosity, you draw a boundary, not harshly, but firmly. I've lived, I've learned, and I don't entertain ghosts, because your past belongs to you, not to be retold, not to be relived, but to be resolved. And if there are things you regret, learn from them. If there are habits you've killed, bury them, but never bring them to the dinner table of your future love, because what's behind you should be building you, not breaking her. And you must understand that every unnecessary detail you give her becomes a crack in her peace, a question in her mind, a wedge in your connection. So choose what to reveal with wisdom, not with guilt. And remember this, she wants to feel chosen, not compared. She wants to feel like you've been searching for her, not recovering from them. And if you must speak of your past, do it with maturity, with restraint, with clarity, not as a badge of pride, but as a mark of evolution, and even then, say only what serves the future, what clarifies your character, what proves your discipline, not what feeds insecurity or ego. Because the man who controls his words controls his world, and your sexual past, no matter how wild, how deep, how complicated, is not a resume. It's a locked drawer in a house you've rebuilt, and only you hold the key. Number 7. They hide their emotional triggers. There's a certain strength a man carries when he walks into a room, and no one, not a woman, not a stranger, not even an enemy, can tell what shakes him, what hurts him, what drives him to react, because he has trained himself to be unreadable in the right ways, not because he fears emotion, but because he understands its currency. And in the world of influence, the one who controls their response controls the dynamic, and high-value men understand this principle, not just from philosophy, but from painful experience. They've lived through moments where showing what hurt them turned into a weapon used against them, where something they confessed became the very thing someone used to pierce them later. So they stopped broadcasting their triggers and started building fortresses around their emotional reactions, not to isolate themselves, but to regain control, because every time you reveal what gets to you, what makes you spiral, what ignites your rage or your fear, you give people a map of your soul, and not everyone deserves that map, especially not in the early stages of connection, especially not when you're still learning who's for you and who's just curious. And when it comes to relationships, this becomes even more crucial, because while she may say she wants to know everything, that she values openness, that she feels closer when you share, what she really values, at her core, is consistency, presence, peace. Those are the foundations she builds trust on, and if she begins to learn that certain comments set you off, that specific behaviors make you shut down, that certain memories make you spiral, even subconsciously she will start testing those boundaries, not out of malice, but out of nature, to see if you are who you say you are, to see if your calm is real or conditional, and if she finds that you are easily shaken, easily provoked, easily pulled out of character, her trust begins to erode, not because she dislikes you, but because she no longer sees you as the anchor. And men who are not anchors eventually become burdens. So high-value men train themselves in emotional pattern recognition. They notice the things that trigger them, and instead of announcing it to the world, they dissect it, they journal it, they heal it. They control the narrative internally so that when they are tested externally, there is nothing to exploit, and if something still hurts, still bites, still stings. Good, that's the next area for growth. But you don't bleed in front of everyone, you bleed where you build, and then you walk into the world with the calm of a man who's done the inner work, and the power that gives you is impossible to fake, because now, even in chaos, you don't flinch. Even in disrespect, you don't break character, and that stability becomes your signature. That poise becomes your brand, and people start to wonder, not what gets to you, but how nothing seems to. And in that mystery, you gain leverage, you gain respect, you gain control, not over others, but over yourself. And that is the ultimate discipline, the highest form of strength. Not how loud you speak, not how intense your anger, but how little it controls you. How rare it is to see you fall into reaction, how deeply you've mastered the art of restraint. And once you reach that point, you no longer need to hide your triggers because they no longer control you. Number 8, they keep their spiritual beliefs close. A man's faith is not just what he believes, it's what he returns to when everything else fails. It's what shapes his decisions when no one is watching. It's what anchors his identity in a world that wants to define him by opinions, labels, trends, and expectations. And for the high-value man, his spirituality is not a loud declaration, not a weapon to debate with, not a tool to impress others. It is sacred. It is private. It is where he draws clarity, peace, and purpose. And because of that, he does not parade it, does not try to convert people with it, does not use it to score moral points or dominate conversations, because he knows that real faith is not declared, it is demonstrated, it is revealed in his discipline, in how he speaks to the weak, in how he holds himself accountable when no one else does, in how he stays grounded when tempted, calm when challenged, focused when distracted, and in relationships. This becomes a cornerstone, because when a woman sees that your values are consistent, when your choices reflect something deeper than convenience, when you carry yourself like someone who answers to something higher, she may not always understand it, but she will feel the gravity of it, and that feeling will either draw her closer or quietly challenge her. And that's not something you need to argue over, because spirituality is not a debate, it's a direction. And that direction should be felt in your presence before it's ever heard in your words. And that's why you don't need to explain your beliefs to everyone, especially not early on, especially not to someone who hasn't earned the right to see the depth of your foundation, because when you expose something sacred too soon, you risk reducing it to something transactional, something subject to approval, and your spirituality is not up for approval. It's not a lifestyle, it's a lifeline, and the more you try to package it for people, the more you dilute its power. So instead of talking about how much you pray, show it in your patience. Instead of preaching discipline, live it in your routines. Instead of quoting verses, embody them in your actions. Because when a woman sees you lead with conviction, when she watches you make decisions with integrity, when she notices how you respect yourself, your time, your body, and your calling, she doesn't need to be told what you believe. She sees it, and whether or not she aligns with it, she will respect the man who doesn't need validation for his faith, because in a world where most men have lost their compass, you become the exception, and that exception is what sets you apart, not because you are trying to be holy, but because you are whole, and that wholeness cannot be faked, cannot be taught. It must be lived. And that's why the high-value man doesn't announce his spiritual beliefs like banners in the wind. He builds them into the bones of his character, and those bones are what carry him through life when everything else bends, breaks, or betrays him. And the men who live that way, they don't have to say a word about what they believe, because the fruit of their life speaks louder than any scripture. You've lived the pain of oversharing, overgiving, overtrusting, and you know deep down, no woman will ever love the version of you that doesn't respect himself first. This world doesn't hand men blueprints anymore. It hands distractions, addictions, and lies. But now you have a choice, right now, not tomorrow, not when things fall apart. Now the Stoic relationship. Blueprint ebook for men was built for you, the man who's tired of being lost, tired of being misunderstood, tired of being used, and finally ready to lead his life and relationships with absolute control, purpose, and strength. It's not just a book, it's an awakening, and it's linked right now in the comments, but it won't stay available for long. Some truths aren't meant for the masses. They're meant for the few who are finally ready to change everything. If that's you, comment the Stoic Blueprint right now. Like the video. Subscribe. Because every click makes sure another man doesn't spend the next 10 years figuring out what you just heard in this video.